Now, if you own a home in Palmer Ranch, here's what you need to know right now. There is one part of the market that is struggling right now, and everything around it is pretty much on fire. There's a lot of activity happening. Now, if you stick with me, because at the end of this, I'm going to show you exactly why and what it means for you specifically. Now, let's start with the fact that the buyers are out there. In the month of June, Palmer Ranch saw 49 home sales. Now, those homes sold for a price of 96% list to sales ratio, and those homes went under contract in a median of 30 days. This is not a market where nothing is happening. There's a lot going on. The question is where are we seeing the activity? Now, here's the number that really matters the most. Across Palmer Ranch, the median asking price for active listings right now is just under $760,000. But the median price for homes that actually go under contract, just under $620,000. The median close price is at $607,500. Now, it's important to understand that active listings and closed sales are not identical groups of homes. So the gap doesn't mean that every seller is listed 20% over the market, but it does tell us that buyer activity is concentrated well below today's active inventory. Now, much of that separation happens before an offer is ever even written. It's important to understand that is not a negotiation discount. That is what I would call a selection discount. Buyers are deciding which homes are even worth considering before negotiations even start. Now, I want you to hold on to that thought because it matters more once we get to the top part of the market. Now, here's where things really start to get interesting. And this is really the story of the month. If you look at Palmer Ranch as one market, you would probably call it a seller's market because we only have about 2 months of supply overall. And by the threshold of below 4 months being a buyer's market, this really favors sellers in Palmer Ranch. But that number is really hiding something, because if you break apart the overall community by price sectors, there is one slice of the Palmer Ranch community that is struggling the way the rest of the community isn't. So let's take a look at the price points. Under $750,000, we're currently carrying about 1.5 months of supply. It's about as tight as it's been in that market for years. The same token, homes over $1 million, when they're priced right, they're contracting about 3 months. But the stretch in between, the $750,000 to $1 million price point, is carrying about 6 months of inventory, 3 to 4 times higher than everything else around it. Now, one likely reason comes down to actually who's buying those properties. And that $750,000 to $1 million price range, only 17% of June's transactions were cash buyers. Everything else around Palmer Ranch, under $750,000, over $1 million, cash buyers made up more than half of all those transactions. Now, that doesn't explain the whole gap, but it does mean that the middle section of the market is more exposed to mortgage rates and lending standards, while the rest of the market, they have cash buyers that are stepping up to absorb the inventory that's actually available to buyers. Now, at the top part of the market, this is really the second story worth telling, because this is where the gap I mentioned earlier really comes back to play. The homes that are over $1 million that sold in June took a median of 97 days to go into contract. But there are still remaining 15 homes still active above $1 million right now. And of those homes that are still available, they've been on the market a median of 130 days. 4 of the homes have been on the market for more than a half a year. One of the listings has been on the market for over 500 days. We're talking close to a year and a half. Now, I want to be direct about what that actually tells us. Palmer Ranch doesn't lack for buyers above that $1 million price point. Cash buyers are clearly participating, and homes that are properly positioned are still finding contracts. But when a buyer sits exposed for over 6 months, a year, or even longer, the market is actually given an answer that the strategy they have hasn't been addressed. It doesn't necessarily mean that the home's undesirable. What it means is that price, condition, and presentation, they're not attracting enough urgency to find them the buyer that they need. Now, good representation means more than just putting a sign in the yard. It comes down to interpreting the market response and adjusting before a listing goes stale. Now, some homes, they aren't suffering from bad luck. They're suffering from a strategy that hasn't responded to the evidence that the market's providing to them. That's not how I work with my clients. So the question is where does the market go headed into the summer? We're in the thick of the summer season. I mean, honestly, for the next several months, it's really kind of hard to say with any confidence. It could go in either direction. The overall supply could tighten if buyer activity holds steady and we don't see a lot of new listing inventory, or it could expand more if owners see that the recent activity and decide that this is their moment to put their properties back on the market. That stuck part of the market, the middle segment that I was talking about, we could see it loosen up a little bit if those sellers start to notice everything around them is moving and they start to adjust their prices in order to match the market. Now, what I would tell any property owner who's thinking about selling here in the Palmer Ranch area, don't build your home sale about a strategy of hoping that rates are going to move in your favor. Positioning for buyers and the competition that actually exists today in this market, the home price, and prepared for today's reality are the ones that are actually moving. Homes still positioned around yesterday's expectations are the ones that are sitting in the market and not getting the necessary activity to get the results that they're hoping for. Now, a few sales in the last month kind of back up that information directly. There was one home that sold in Turtle Rock that went under contract the same day it hit the market, closed at full price. In Legacy Estates, there a home that closed at $419 a foot. And in Esplanade, one home went under contract the day it hit the market for $454 a foot. In this market that is still trying to find its footing, those are real numbers and real proof that the demand is out there for the right product. It really hasn't gone anywhere. The common thread is not luck. It's homes that are move-in ready condition, have a strong presentation, and pricing that gives buyers a reason to act on the listing. That's the kind of detail that I track every month. Not just Palmer Ranch as a whole, but street by street, community by community. Now, if you own a home in Palmer Ranch, I encourage you to join my Palmer Ranch Pulse owner briefing that I put out each month. I'll drop a link in the description for you so you can register. Each month what I do is I send out information on numbers owners should be watching, what's selling, where buyers are pulling back, which price ranges are gaining momentum, and what those changes actually mean for your property. You don't have to be selling today. The value really is seeing the market shift before you need to make a decision. If your home is one of the most important assets you have, this is important that information is worth having before you need to know when you're ready to sell. Now, my job is to give you information and strategy to help you to produce a better result. Not simply put a sign in the yard and hope a buyer comes along. Hope is not a strategy. I am here to engineer demand for the best possible outcome, using strategy and positioning to your advantage. Now again, my name is Ed Grabowski. I'm your local broker here in the Sarasota area with a particular lens on the Palmer Ranch community, helping you to have a better outcome when you go to sell. Now I appreciate your time today, and I look forward to connecting with you very soon. Take care, and we'll talk to you later.